In the next 90 minutes or so, I want to kind of play around with you the concept of an audience, who they are, and why it's important. And I'll move around a bit with you about how we try and do that. And hopefully, at the end of 90 minutes, you will be thinking slightly differently about audiences and how to integrate it a bit. Before I start, can I just ask people, how many people have a film project in the room? How many people have a film project? Can you just put your hands up? Can you put them right up? So, how many don't have a film project? Okay, so you're here, do you have other projects? Oh, in the future? Anybody not in film at all? Or in some other form of media? Yeah, okay, fine, thanks. Yeah, what are you in? Pardon? Culture generally. But are you an artist or a producer or? You what? Okay, fine. So how many producers are in the room? Film producers? Come on, stick your hands up, I can't see. Okay, how many writers? You can be both. And how many directors? Okay, how many producer-directors? That's good, only one, okay. All right. Okay, so you're mainly in the realm of film and you're mainly in the realm of producing film. Okay. So I'm going to start by looking at a few figures, actually, because I think they're quite interesting. There's a certain amount of things that are going on in film. I don't come here with some very easy answers, by the way. It's a very difficult time for film. A very difficult time for film indeed, as I will endeavour to show you. So I'm going to be quite merciless. I'm going to be quite blunt, quite direct about the difficulties that you're going to face about getting your film made, and then, if it's made, actually getting seen. You're going to have to be very, very, very inventive and very firm and very direct yourself if you're going to have any chance of a film getting seen. And here's it all made, and here's some of the reasons. You probably know this, but it's worth saying. Now, home entertainment, which for the last 30 years sustained the independent film business, especially since about the 1980s when VHS was invented, is getting cheaper and cheaper. Now, this is great news for the consumer, but it's not very good news for you, because people are getting used to paying less and less and less for their films in the home. Now, what's actually happening out there is that the DVD market is declining, and the DVD market was what everybody really liked in the film business. And the VOD market is not coming up anywhere near as fast to replace it. That's the first point. And the second point is, it's getting cheaper. Now, that's £3.49 to rent the Wolverine 4 months after its theatrical release date. That's a huge Hollywood budget film, and that's how much it's valued in the UK. What's also important to note about that price is that you buy that through your television set. You don't buy it through VOD platforms or through the computers. That's being delivered through what's called Sky's Store, and you just turn on your television, you do your transaction, and you pay for it. So home entertainment is getting easier and it's getting cheaper. Now, that's what's called transactional VOD or TVOD, which is how you have price per transaction. What we're also seeing is what's called SVOD, or subscription VOD, headed and spearheaded. Is Netflix in Slovenia yet? No, okay. It's not in Australia either, but there are 200,000 Australian subscribers to Netflix. I don't know if you know that, by hiding their IP addresses and signing on as Americans. It's quite easily done, and Netflix don't really care. So in this case, what SVOD is doing is getting things even more cheaper. In this case, this is a Norwegian one, but in this case, in the UK, it's 6 or that's about 7, 8 euros a month. Now that's quite cheap, and it's especially cheap if you share a house. You have the same password. It then becomes very cheap a month. And of course, it's all you can eat, as we call it, so you can watch any films whenever you want that's on Netflix. So things are getting very much cheaper. Or, put another way, people are valuing films less. They don't see films as valuable as they used to, especially when it comes to in the home. Now bear that in mind, and we'll come back to that. And as I said, SVOD is very cheap indeed. And another point about SVOD, and indeed some of the other transactional VOD things, which is again significant, is that you can see that you can watch it on any device, including, of course, this. Now, that's a film being seen on this. It's actively encouraged to be seen on that if you're looking at the platforms. Now, you as creators might have an opinion about that, positively or negatively, but either way, somewhere along the line, it is very likely that your film will end up being watched, hopefully at all, on a very small screen as well as on a big one, potentially. Now, the one area that has held its value against all odds has been cinema. And this is, although you can see these are admissions, and you can see a slight decline over the last 10, 12 years in America. That's North America, Europe at the top, and United States or North America at the bottom. And they sort of, although North America's declined more, you can see a sort of a general pattern. Where the film industry, the exhibition or cinema industry has managed to disguise this gradual decline in the developed economies, the developed film economies, Western Europe and North America, has been through increased ticket prices, especially on 3D, where you've got a 3D premium. So the box office has tended to increase over and above inflation, but admissions are probably in a slight and gentle decline. It's not the case in every territory. I thought I'd smash up a few ones here. Can you see those? There's Italy, Latvia, if you're interested. Lithuania's gone up and Latvia's gone up. Any ideas why? Any ideas why? Now I'm going to ask you to think like audiences, you see. You're going to have to switch off your producers' heads and you're now going to have to think, I go to the cinema, why would this happen? What would make me go more often? What's going on in those countries that they're bucking the trend? What do you think's happening? It's a good point, actually. I don't think that's the case here. It's an extremely good point. I could come back to how important local production is if you job me again. It wouldn't account for an increase, a gradual increase. It would account for an increase going up like that and up like down like that. Local production is incredibly important for cinemas. This is a good point for you. Incredibly important. I'll explain that later. No, there's another reason, I suspect. Come on. Why do admissions go up in Latvia and Lithuania? Let's have a look at some more. Flatline in Norway and go up in Poland. What's the common currency here? Where are we? We're in where? Eastern Europe. What's happened in Eastern Europe in some countries over the last, say, 6, 7, 8 years in cinemas? Pardon? Looking to Europe, possibly? No, they've been built. You've had new cinemas. You've had multiplexes come in. You are, all boats rise is the expression. You are absolutely interlinked. Your health is their health. Everybody's health is in the same boat here. If cinema admissions generally go up, you're in a better position. The reason why that's happening is that you've had some infrastructure investment in Eastern Europe, where in Western Europe it's probably always sort of done anyway, which is why it's flatlined. But there's something else behind it. This is one of the beginnings of the first points I want to make. From a consumer point of view, a multiplex opens up in my place where I used to have one-screen cinema, and it used to be a bit run down and didn't do me very much good service. and so on and so forth, and a 6-8 screen cinema opens up, what happens to me? What do I feel? What would you feel if a cinema... I mean, how many... So you've only got a few cinemas in Slovenia, haven't you? So what would happen if a new 6-8 screen cinema opened up near you? What would you feel? Yeah, what does that make you feel? Oh, damn, I've got a choice. I'm bored. What do you feel? What might you feel? Come on. Yes, thank you. Excitement. It's exactly right. It's new. It's a bit exciting. Cinema going becomes a bit exciting when it's a bit new. Would you agree? The excitement thing about this, it's exciting. When I've had a cinema there for a long time, cinema going is not so exciting. Okay? It's so people are seeking to begin to try and make it more exciting. Because if it isn't exciting or got a degree of excitement, people aren't going to go. So you're going to get a bounce when cinema opens up, new cinemas open, of any type really, or whatever it is. Oh, that's exciting. It's new, it's different, it's exciting. Right? So there's your stuff there. Now where have I got? And here's Slovenia. I thought I found it. I couldn't believe it, but I found it. There's your own country's admissions that are slightly declining. Now why is Slovenia declining slightly, or at best flatlining? What's going on here? I don't know. I don't know your country very well. I've asked a bit, so I've got an idea. What's happening? Or what hasn't happened? I don't know. Tell me. Yeah. Back here, yeah. Right. Got any new cinemas opening recently? Have you? I wouldn't have thought so. I mean, I don't know your country. I'm just looking at the numbers. I'm going, probably not. Am I right? So if I was an exhibitor, or I think I want to get into exhibition, I'd be thinking, this is a country for growth. You need some cinemas, and you can probably have some cinemas, and they'll probably work. If I look at other countries. Just as an aside, in case you want to start cinemas up, it's a good business at the moment, I would. But don't just think you're producers, it's all value chain. I'm joking a bit. So, but that's what I would be saying there as well. Is that cinema, you haven't got enough cinemas there, and all other things are happening as well. You've got many more films happening. So there's some nice statistics here. Portugal, any idea why that's happened? Yes, I think so. I would hazard a guess. Yeah. I mean, this is a big issue with cinemas. Don't forget, I said the ticket prices increased all the time. Then we hit the recession. Is Spain there? No, but Spain is... Okay, it's not there actually. Spain is the worst one in Europe for that and so on. But there's something else that's happening as well. And that's just what we're seeing in Western and even Eastern Europe and in North America, where I said these are the developed economies. What we're also seeing is a massive growth in non-developed film economies, namely Brazil, Russia, a bit of India. Okay, India's got its own film industry, and especially, and most importantly and hugely, in China. Now you might think that this doesn't affect you, but I'm going to explain to you why it does. Well, first of all, let's understand the graph. This is the Chinese box office. There it is in 2004, and there's America. Okay? This is it now in 2014, and this is where it's projected. By 2020, China will have a bigger film domestic box office than the home of commercial or mainstream cinema, which is in America. Already you're seeing one or two films taking more money in China than they did in North America. I think things like Transformers and so on. Now, the implication of this is, what kind of films are being made? If you're sitting in Hollywood, which contributes to about 80% of European box office, give or take, right across each country, give or take, and therefore a whole of the American exhibition infrastructure is dependent on the success or failure of mainstream cinema. Where's your main market now? Now it's in China. What kind of films do Chinese apparently like? Action. Big noises, lots of action. Okay? Now, unscratch the surface of any exhibitor in Europe, and they're going, these latest films that come out of America, I mean, my people like action, but I don't know if they like it that much. They like a bit more of a story. So there's a worry that what's happening is that narrative storytelling for mainstream cinema is trying to cover too much and focusing a bit too far here now, in these red lines, and beginning to forget its domestic audience. And people are worried. Okay? That's an opportunity for you as well as a threat. Okay? If Hollywood begins to turn its attention away from Western Europe, there are audiences out there that are going to be underserved for a certain type of film. You understand what those audiences are looking for, and those cinemas will bite your hand off because they will be short of this stuff. Make sense? So that's the context. There's less money in the pot. Home entertainment and the value of film is going down. Cinemas are okay, but there are transformations in the marketplace. Okay, I'm going to play a game. And this is about what do people buy? What do people buy from us? This is not my game. This is from a marketing guru called Mark Earls, who played this with me and a few other film execs and when we were looking at how to increase cinema going in the UK. And I was very impressed by this, and hopefully you are too. But what it does do is it tries to get your head from being a producer up to your head to being a consumer, right? From a kind of marketing or brand perspective. Now you're going to have to contribute here, and you're going to have to think. So, this is the adage, this is the statement. What people buy. Now what the statement goes is this. Organisations or companies sell, for example, drills. So in your instances you make a film, but actually a film is a drill. All right? Some organisations do audience development schemes, that's a drill. Okay? It does something. We think it's good, we think it does something. But what people buy are holes. Do you understand? So what we forget sometimes is that what we're selling is not what people are buying. And what we need to understand is what it is that people are buying, not what it is that we are making. Because we don't, if we're drill manufacturers, we don't actually make a drill at all. We make a perfect hole. And that's what people want from us. Is that clear? Does that make sense? So we're going to play a little game here before we move into this. So we're going to have a drill bit, and then we're going to have a hole. I'm going to call out the drill bit, and you're going to tell me what the hole is. The first one's the hardest one. I perhaps should reorder this, actually, so you get warmed up, but it gets easier. But here we go. Computing or computers. If a computing or computer is a drill bit, what might or what is the hole that people would buy or might buy? Information is a bit drill bitty. It's a bit more gut. Sorry, storage? Storage for data? No, that's definitely a drill. Pardon? Come on, dig deeper. I'm going to ask you what computers you got in a minute. Pardon? Nope, that's a drill. Yep, that's a drill. Come on, what's the hole? There are many, many computers out there. I'm running a computer company. If I sell information, what's the difference? If I sell software, what's the difference? What makes me different? What is it that people are going to buy that is a really great whole that I can build a whole company around? Pardon? That's games, that's still functional? It's still a drill? Okay. What? No, it's not far off. You're getting closer. Satisfaction there. It's beginning to get into the area that you want. But it's more about a statement. Now, who's got a computer open? Or with you? You have. And so have you. Anyone else? Anyone else got a computer? I've got one. Do you want to hold your computer up? So everyone can see it. And yours. And yours. Okay. And mine. What are they? What? Yeah, they're apples. Now, why have we bought apples? Why did we buy apples? Why? What's in the brand that makes us? Why didn't we buy a cheap Dell? Someone had got a Dell actually earlier. I looked at it. I looked at it. Okay, she got a Dell notebook. Okay, she was on Microsoft. What sort of prestige? Who else has got? Anyone else got a Microsoft computer in this room? Who else? But who else works on Apple? Who else works on Apple? Why do we work on Apple? Who are we? Apart from it works, who are we? What sort of? No, we're not consumers. Who are we? What do we do? Yes, we're bloody creative. That's what we are. We're creative people. Right? We're creative. Okay? That's why we got Apple, because Apple sells creativity. That's why we've got it. Oh yes, it does other things. It's good on software, and it's got good, and it doesn't have viruses, but it's bloody expensive. All right? And I wish I didn't have to have an Apple. I wish I got Microsoft because it's cheaper. But it's not creative. The first time I went to South by Southwest, you know South by Southwest, the festival? You know it? Right? And the interactive festival, which is genius. It's brilliant. It's a brilliant festival. It's got all the energy that you don't get in Europe. And I sat there, and it was about 2010, and I had my Film Council Dell issue laptop. And I looked around. And I was the only one. And then when I opened it up, and it makes that horrible Windows noise, you know, that thing, and everyone, it was really embarrassing. Okay? Because Apple is creativity. Now, not every computer is creative. Some are just cheap. Okay? But they're not the ones that have made themselves into the most successful, biggest company in the world after Exxon. Now, you get it? You begin to see what it is that people buy. What about a four-wheel drive car? This is much easier. What am I buying? Yes, excitement. A bit more. Pardon? Power. Adventure. Exactly. Absolutely right. I'm not buying a four-wheel car. I'm buying adventure. I am adventurous. I'm now creative and adventurous. I don't have a car, by the way. Okay? It's rumoured that before the crash, before the recession, the Irish economy was booming in a way that it shouldn't have, the Celtic Tiger, whatever it's called, and they had more money than sense, that with all the people that had four-wheel drive cars, there was a company started that came along to spray mud on your car over the weekend, so that when you went into the office, it looked like you'd been out adventuring. Okay? I think it's true. Okay? Groceries, eating, food. There's more than one here. I've got one down, but I've been doing this quite a bit. Sorry? Yes, health, I think, is absolutely one. You buy health when you buy food, not just energy. What else? Bit more deeper. What? What else might you buy food for? Joy, yes, joy, actually. What sort of joy, though? Yeah, sensation, taste. Taste. You know, the whole chains and stuff, like, it tastes better. It tastes marvellous. You know, buy this, it's the best taste. I buy it for taste. I could just buy tomatoes. But I could buy tomatoes with taste. Heritage tomatoes, we call them in the UK. They're old, ugly ones. They're meant to taste better. Okay? Soap, don't say clean. That's what it does, not what you are. Soap, I buy soap because it'll make me feel, pardon? Fresh, or that's too clean. Pardon? Pure, sort of, yeah. Pardon? Beautiful. Exactly. I buy soap because it makes me feel beautiful. Perhaps more for the women and the men in the room, but I mean, you know, that's why I buy soap. Lux, whatever it is, not Lux, what was it? It's gone up my head. Did a whole campaign about this, and it's one of the cheapest soaps on the planet, but you buy that and you feel beautiful. And finally, underwear. Huh? Comfort. Right, okay. I'm selling, well, you know, I suppose not far. Fair enough, I'm selling comfort. Yes, fair enough, but I mean, yeah. Let's try, come on. Yes, absolutely, of course it is. Of course it is. But it took the British store Marks and Spencer's probably 30 years to realise that their customers might want sexy underwear as opposed to comfort. So the question is, what is a film? I haven't got an answer, by the way. What? Okay. Mixture of all those things. Come on. Come on. You have to. Pardon? Dream. It's a dream. It's imagination. This is what people are looking for from film. They like to dream. It's about they want to see imagination. What? They might want to learn stuff. Emotion. They want emotion. I want to feel something from this film. Adventure. I want to feel adventure. Go on. Fascination with what? With? Okay. Do people really just go for the effects? No. That's a bit drill bit, isn't it? You know, look at these effects. Big arrow, big effect. No. But but there's something behind that. There's people undoubtedly like big effects movies. So what is it that happens there? What are they looking for? Stories, thrills. And what else might it be? What else is, especially in the cinema? Why would you go to the cinema as opposed to watching it on a pardon? What? I can't hear, sorry. Excitement, yes, I want to be excited, I want thrills, I want dreams, I want fascination, I want go on. A great experience, yeah. I want to be educated. I hope you're all making notes on this. Huh? Yes, socialising. I'm still actually on the film itself rather than the round experience because we're filmmakers. Yes, a sharing of an emotion, an enhanced emotion, which is why I go to the cinema, perhaps. Anything else? Event. Big screen, I would say. Big screen, big sound. That always comes up whenever you ask people why they go to the cinema, not just film. Well, if it's a big screen or it's a big effect, we've got big effect, big screen, big. We're big emotions, big feelings, and so on. Things that I could admire, look up to. It's about being moved, about being entertained, but taken out of myself. Okay, you all did this, I didn't do this. That's film. And that's especially film in cinema. Right? That's why cinema, the big bit. If you don't have that, if you haven't got that big bit in your film, why would you expect people to see your film in the cinema? And if you don't have any of those words that we've just said in your film, why is it a film? Okay, I don't know quite yet what projects you've got, but right this second, what's really important, even if it's not feeling that great, is what's my film that I've got in my head, and does it match some of those, or as many of those words that we've just said as possible? Because the further away they are from those words, the less likely it is to be a film. Okay, this is terribly, terribly important. For years I thought a film was something that was meant for theatrical release, which was a kind of policy speak way of trying to get around the subject. Only a year ago did I suddenly realise that the only people that can define what a film is are the consumers, because they make the decision. And once you think about it that way, then you begin to think, oh God, I better make sure that my 90-minute piece of stuff is a film, because I've thought about it from the consumer's perspective. So that makes sense, horrible though that might be. Most European films aren't films, I'm afraid. Okay? What's this bit? Oh yeah. I did some research. Went out and talked to people. Literally talked to a lot of people in groups. I wanted to find out actually what they felt about video on demand and so on. It turned out that something else came out about film, and I thought I might want to hammer home this point to you of what it is that you're trying to thinking of making and where it is best fit. And there's a difference, and here it goes. I don't know if this is the case in your countries or in all countries, but it rings true. But let's see, you can talk to me afterwards. So we spoke to a lot of people, and this is what they said about cinema on film. If you're older, me just, and you're older, 45 plus, we grew up, or I grew up, because I'm the only person over 45 in this room, I grew up knowing absolutely for a fact the cinema was the best place to see the film. That was it. Gold standard. I grew up in the world of black and white tiny televisions. I know it's surprising, but it did. We didn't have a television until I was 8 anyway. I lived on a farm in the country, so it was like, so cinema, it was like, it was amazing, it was huge, it was big, it was the best place. And even all the way through the terrible shit years of cinema exhibition, basically the 1970s and mid-80s, cinema was still the best place to see a film. I mean, television got black and white, but it didn't have a screen that size, I can tell you. Okay? So cinema is the best way to see a film. That's it. You'll never, ever make me change my mind. Never, because I know it. It's in me. It's done. However, I recognise that I don't see everything in the cinema. So occasionally I go, okay, right, oh sorry, I beg your pardon. Now, if I'm a younger person, these were 35 and younger, we call them digital natives, might be cheating slightly. Cinema is not the best way to see a film. The way that people in that age group decide whether your age group, are going to see a film is by the price and the value. So they're much more, what they're saying is it worth seeing this in the cinema? Because cinema is not necessarily the best place to see a film. Cinema is one way to see a film. So what's the value of cinema for this experience? And that's where words like big and big screen and special effects and the kind of things that we associate with cinema, that's where those words begin to work for them. Because they don't, even now, they don't recognise they don't get that on a smaller screen. But it's more expensive, right? So I will measure it. So what's the best place to see a film? And I'll measure the value of it. How much does it cost me? What kind of film is it? Where is the best place to see it? So they're not wedded to cinema as the best place. If, going back to me, I want to see something in the home, it's a compromise, best place is the cinema, I'll watch it on DVD. I understand DVD, I get Blu-ray, it's nice, it's a chunky thing, it's transactional, I've got a piece of thing, I understand this, I put it in, and I sit and I get it. Okay, and I then put it on my next biggest screen that I've got in my world. First one is cinema, and the second one is this in my home. Okay, I'll sit in front of the television, which is probably a lot bigger now, and I'll watch my DVD. Okay, sometimes I've got a projector. I'll make a real night of it. Okay, because it's real fun, and I've got something like that. This is true, by the way, and that's the best way to see a film. Younger people. Stream. Don't buy, they stream, and it's multi-device viewing. They are utterly and almost completely agnostic about how and where they watch it. They watch it on a laptop, watch it on a television, or they watch it on this, however big the film is. So what we have is a drift. We have a drift from older to younger. Younger people are price and value and are much more agnostic about where and how they see the film. Right? So if you want them to see the film in the cinema or in the formats that you want them to see it in, then you're going to have to understand why they're going to actually say this is valuable enough for me to go to the cinema. Understand what people want from those various platforms and devices. Now, I'm not sure this will work. I want to play you a clip.
I arrived late at night. Next morning I woke up and I went to a coffee shop, had my first hash browns, bacon and sausage. God, it was fantastic. Then I walked down Sunset Boulevard. I thought, I'm on Sunset Boulevard. It still rings for me. Wow, I live on Sunset. That was a great film, wasn't it? Gloria Swanson, she was phenomenal as that actress. Her last line was, she's going to be arrested. And they said, the lights are ready. She goes, the lights. There's nothing else, just us and the cameras and those wonderful people out there in the dark. All right, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up. Great. Brings a tear to your eye.
So, what do you make of that? What was that trying to do? It certainly was. How is it? What was it selling, by the way? Sorry?
Better quality.
Yes, it was selling better quality. It was actually selling a subscription to a hard drive, one of the most boring things you can never sell. Okay? Well, what was it actually capturing? Yes, absolutely. It stole or steals whole attributes of the film and squeezes it into that 60, 50 second act. I think it's brilliant. Brings a tear to your eye. I like it. It's about emotion and the power of films and movie. In fact, we very often squeeze it onto a hard drive is overgrown. See what I mean? So that's something there where they have absolutely nailed what the whole is to what it is that they're selling. They're not selling a hard drive, they're not selling subscriptions, they're selling a whole cinematic, emotional appeal. That's what people want from film. Or are looking for from it, mostly 98%, 99% of people. Does that make sense? Is that sort of coming home to you and what it is that you're trying to create, make and do for people? That's what they want. This next section is a forerunner. You have to concentrate because you're going to get tested. Is a smaller version of a very much more involved description of why people go to the cinema, why they actually go, how they choose their films. Okay? I think it's got relevance right across Europe and North America, not exclusively in every country. France is usually the one that you raised as an exception. But from the performance of the way films perform at the box office, it's not too far off this. Now, the reason why I'm showing this to you is at the end of it, it gives you two tools for you to use. Okay? I'll point them out, and then you can use them, and we might use one of those tools here, right and now. So I'm just going to go through this. Why is film important in people's lives? So you can read it up there, okay? And very, very, I don't know, hopefully you've read this. Can you see this at the back? Yeah, okay. Okay, and right at the bottom is the summary. These are all from talking to people, by the way. I won't bore you with the methodology. Trust me, it works, it's brilliant, it's fine. This is done by a research company. I commissioned them twice to do it when I was at Film 4 and then at Film Council, blah, blah, blah. Reason why film is so important to people's lives, it satisfies unfulfilled desires. The kind of words that you brought out when I asked you what is a film is actually the unfulfilled desires. We don't live lives in the way that you just described what a film is. Film transports us, moves us, and takes us into places where we would probably like to be, but we generally are not. We're not superheroes much as we'd like to be. We're not very handsome much as we like to be, and so on. Now, when everyone was asked about this, the researchers discovered that these are all the things, from another piece of research, that people actually would like to get at work. They would like excitement, exhilaration, power, fun, ambition, people to admire, creativity, imagination, innovation, style and glamour, and the surprising and the unexpected, all the things that people would like to have at work. Now, this may be a shock to you, but out there, because you've all got great jobs, out there people don't get that. They have very boring work lives with people who are horrible, there's no creativity, no imagination, and so on. But that's what they would like. And these are the words. To a large extent, the role of film is to fulfill people's desires. So if there's one thing I want you to take away, if your film is a bit too much like work, then you may have a problem with people coming to see it. This might sound a stupid thing, but I can tell you, look at the project you got in your head and begin to think, how many of those words are inside that film? Or how many other words might be described to it? If it's too much like work, you're going to start to have a problem getting people to see your film. Okay, that's the first point. It's not like work. Unfulfilled desires. Second point, this is going to the cinema. How do people choose to go to see the film in the cinema? And it's quite simple, because what they do is, I hope you can see this at the back, what they do is, as you read that, is that what they do is they talk to each other. Because cinema is, on the whole, as two people have already said, a social activity. Even at the home, slightly different. Can be more solitary. So taste at home is slightly different, but not exclusively, I can tell you. But it's with your partner, or indeed a group of friends. So it's really, really important here to understand that your film is going to be discussed with other people to decide whether my partner, or as a group, will go and see this film. So some obvious things start to come out from this. Films that polarize will have a problem because it is a matter of compromise. I'm going to discuss with someone, do we want to go and see this? Okay? Now, it's not just a question, it says there, of no one wants to be blamed for choosing a bad film. Apart from the emotional reasons attached to seeing a bad film, it's a waste of money and time. It's also embarrassing, which is true. But there's also something else in the cinema. Have you ever sat beside someone where you've liked the film and they haven't? Who's done that? Good experience? Did you enjoy the experience of them not liking it? Not really, no. It's a horrible experience. You can feel them fidgeting, and you know you're going to have a row coming out. What did you choose that for? Oh, I thought it was great. No, it wasn't. Yeah, it was. It was shit. You know, I want to, but the thing is, you can't go because you can't go. You know, if you're watching a film on DVD at home or streaming, you just walk out and go have a cup of tea. Can't do that in the cinema, right? So you're stuck. You're stuck there watching this god-awful film while your partner likes it. That's an experience people just don't want. So it's really important that you both want to see this film. Now, it can be frustrating at times, especially with me. My wife conforms very much to a certain type of cinema going, and I conform to another, male-female a bit. I like action, she likes drama. Right? We're constantly having to compromise. It's a real pain. I don't ever say that. I've highlighted that cinema is still felt to be an event, which is a really important point we're going to come back to. Now, have we got that point? Because there's some serious things coming up after that one, which is this. How do we describe a film to people? How do I tell? How do I have the conversation? Hello, do you want to come and see this film? Yeah, what's it about? What's in it? Okay? So these are the things that are important to people when they come to decide and to describe to each other as to what the film is. Don't forget they haven't seen the film. You have, you've worked with it for 3, 4, 5 years. You know your film. But unfortunately, these people are going to have to decide in what? How many seconds do you think people have this? You must have had these conversations. How long does it take you to decide if you're going to see a film or not when talking to each other? Almost instantly. Horrible though it is, it's almost instantly. And these are some of the clues that people have in this dialogue. Well, it's a genre, and this is why genre is so important. Genre is not important because genre is important. Don't ever think and get people to tell you that you must have a genre because genre sells. Why does it sell? It's because it's easy to describe. It helps people. We cluster things. It's what we do. We have to cluster things for shorthand so we can say so. It's a horror film. Oh, I don't like horror films. Okay, well, let's not go. Okay, you don't have to describe what that film is. It's a film where lots of people get stabbed and it's very scary. Oh, a horror film. You get me? So genre, practically number one. Number two is, no, it's not number two, but I'll come with it. Actors I like, helps. It's got in it, but only top names. Most people don't really know, but only top names. Sometimes producers, sometimes directors, but very, very seldom, because people really don't know them. A well-known book or a story, this helps a lot. That's why, an event even. A known source, as they call it. What, does it, oh, it's about that, and I know what it is. It's about the First World War. Oh, I know what that's about. Okay, and on we go. Word of mouth, everyone's talking about it. It's a great film. I've read about it, critics. It's won Oscars, it's got something. And the second most important thing is a good and obvious hook. What's it about? Genre, what type of film, what's it about? Those are the two most important things to communicate, that people communicate with each other about a film. You can ignore surprising twists, that's probably pushing it. Barriers, conversely, if those don't operate at all, then people are going to struggle to decide to choose your film. They're going to struggle. Don't like the genre's not clear, no actors, no directors, don't know the story, no one's talking about it. This is quite obvious. If you don't have those, you're going to have a problem. So, to summarise this, films need to quickly and obviously signal that they're for me or for us, quickly and obviously. You need to explain to your friends why they should go and see it with you or you with them. And those are the clues. Okay? You'll get this summarised at the end. This is the tool. Now, we talked about genre. By the way, there's a genre missing here, which is family. Well, I didn't do family, but the rest is there. Okay? Those are the genres, just to explain this. If it's a romance, it appeals to female. If it's sci-fi, it appeals to male. Comedy is the unifier. If it's a romance on its own, men are very unlikely to go and see it. If it's a rom-com, you've got a shot. Romantic comedy, then men will possibly go and see it. Okay? That's the divide, or tends to be the divide. Yeah. This research. Yes. Yeah. And you can see this in box office stuff. I mean, you can see films that 70-80% women go to. Bridesmaids, 80%. I went to see that, actually. It was about me and about 5 people in the cinema, and that was a comedy. All right? So, there's one genre that's missing, apart from family. What is it? Pardon? Drama, exactly. And that's because people tend not to use drama as a descriptor. So if your film is a drama, it doesn't fit into there, then you're already struggling to get beyond the first point of communication. What's a film about? You can't name it. It's a drama. It doesn't make sense. What drama? What's that mean? Doesn't compute easily with people on the other side. I don't quite know what a drama means. I know what sci-fi is, I know what rom-com is, I know what horror is, I know what action thriller is. I'm not quite sure what drama is. A lot of films are drama made as dramas, and then you'll find marketeers desperately trying to make them into a genre. And as filmmakers, you're going, they're ruining my film. They're not. They're just trying to make something that makes sense to somebody to describe what kind of film it is. If your genre is mixed, you've got a problem. If it's not there at all, you have another problem. It doesn't mean you failed, it just means you have a problem connecting with audiences. Okay? I'm moving now to the appeal of American cinema versus European or independent cinema. Here's where American cinema works. These words, you've seen them before. These are all the words that people don't get from work. These are the unfulfilled desires. This is where mainstream cinema at its best communicates brilliantly with cinema-going audiences or film-watching audiences. These are the words, again, that we saw earlier that we don't get from work. But these are the words that are associated with mainstream cinema, or film, actually, because a lot of mainstream film is still 98% of box office. Most people recognise American films have big budgets, but they're also good films, are high in emotion, visual, entertaining. They are cinematic, using the words that we were looking at before. But there are negatives. There are things, especially in Europe, that we don't like about mainstream and especially American cinema. Not all Americans, but some of it. And it can be moralistic, schmaltzy, patriotic, unrealistic, etc., squeaky clean. Okay? So we don't like that. It's too crude for us. It's probably got worse, actually, in the last 10 years or so. There's a difference between the old world and new world approach to the way that we describe ourselves. Now, can anyone remember, you've all seen Saving Private Ryan, have you? You've seen it? Does anyone remember, by the way, who thought it was a good film? Saving Private Ryan, the Spielberg film, Tom Hanks. Anyone see it? Right, so who's seen the film? Come on, it's a bit hot in here, I know, thank you. Who thought it was a great film? Only one? Two. Okay, who thought it was an okay film? All right, so who thought, why did, okay, so who said great film? Right, there's a count, you. What's the last scene? What's the very last moment of the film? What? What's the very last scene in the film? The American flag. Do we like that? Did we like that scene? The film goes, oh, no, not really, no, we don't. Spielberg is a magnificent filmmaker. He makes a magnificent film, depending exactly what your taste is in movies and so on, all the way through, and then you get the one before last scene where he revisits his grave, and he starts to cry, and it goes up, and you've got the American flag. And we all just go, what? In America, you can't get a better illustration of the difference between patriotic, schmaltzy, etc., from a great movie than that very last scene. If you can't remember it, go and have a look at it on YouTube or wherever it is, because it's there. It's brilliant. You just go, blimey. But we actually tend to forget it, because it's so shit, we just wipe it out. See, like you did. So that's a really good example from a great filmmaker. So we can actually, these are independent films, okay? Independent films, etc., that are positive, etc., and these are the kind of things that we can look at. And these are really important points, and they're very, very important points, because this is where it becomes into your grasp. These are the kind of things and stories that you can actually make. All right? These are the positives. This is what people want. Characters and situations I can identify with. This is really important. Don't forget, we also like big superhero characters who do stuff that we would like to be. But conversely, not all the time, we don't always want that kind of heroic thing. We also want people that we can identify and situations we can identify with. Fresh acting talent, humour's really important, authentic and believable again. We like things to be a bit more closer to home, but not too close, because we don't want it like work. Okay? Be careful. Right? We can be intelligent, we can take risks, we're original, we're more original. We're unsentimental, amoral, and clever at our best in independent cinema. So can Hollywood be, by the way. It can be brilliant like that. For those who watch some of the kids' film, like Up or something like that, it's just brilliant, you know. And that. But anyway, and then we can see people break the rules. Really important stuff. This cutting edge, challenging. The word I used in my opening speech, whatever it was. Okay. So at its best, independent films are highly believable and easy to relate you in a way that they're executed that is funny, clever, knowing, not sentimental or schmaltzy. But be careful, because here comes the ones that people don't like. Same faces, etc. Not cinematic. And there it is. Not cinematic. What the hell does that mean? Well, I don't know. You know. We know. We all kind of know. Right? It's just not cinematic. Not filmic enough. No real peak moments. Doesn't engender real emotions. Moralizing and worthy. Right? Speaking down to people. Patronising them in some ways. Especially true of social realist films. Limited, unpredictable, working class, middle class, etc. Depressing and grim. Okay? Depressing or grim. Right? Raw is another one. You ever see a review where it goes, a raw emotional film, you'll see people run for the exits. What's that film about? Oh, it's that raw emotional film. No thanks. No thanks. It's okay. Parochial, and so on. And here we have strong, independent, amoral and sentimental, knowing and clever, and a wicked sense of humour. Where do you want to be? If you're going to plot your film, where would you want it to be to have a chance of getting into an audience's decision making? Where would you like to be on this? You're going to have to shout. Where would you want to be? I got 1 point. I'm going to put a point. Where do you want your film to be placed? Here? I don't think so. Here? Where would you want to be? Pardon? Upright. Completely correct. This, more or less, is your area. Okay? So, in other words, if you're going to be, I'll explain in a second. So here's some that I kind of plotted earlier. You can have your own arguments about it as to where they should be or not be. Okay? Enormous amount of British stuff down here, which no one goes to see. No one. Not really. No one. Tiny, tiny audiences. Doesn't mean you can't get a living out of it, just no one wants to see it. The interesting bits are these dotted lines. There are two of these, but there's plenty more of them. And this is another really, really important point. The dotted lines are something that I didn't realise until we began to do this. These are basically films that start off down here, grim, uncompromising, etc., unglamorous, gritty, raw, and potentially emotional. But in their execution, end up somewhere up here. And they are massive hits. Huge hits. They're the ones that are the breakout hits. I mean, I'm in British land at the moment, but Billy Elliot, 1984 miners' strike, bloke who wants to be a dancer, gets beaten up by his dad. Oh, please. This is grim, this is depressing. Bang, straight up there. Like in Full Monty, loads of unemployed people, desperate for money, take their clothes off for money. Right? The biggest films ever at that point, up here. Slumdog Millionaire. I mean, Slums of Mumbai. It's a pretty vicious film, actually, in lots of ways, in its execution up here. Trainspotting. Right? drug dealing and the heroin addicts and the Edinburgh Council estates. Who the hell wants to go and see that? Straight out here. Execution, Bray up and Knowing and Clever. And so on, and so on, and so on. There are so many films that start off looking like they're going to be too close to me, they're too authentic and too believable. But in their execution, that's in the writing and in the direction, they end up in this kind of feeling of cinematic. And there are many more like that, actually. Lots and lots and lots, and they're all low budget. That's the other thing. Nearly all of those are very low budget films because they're set in authentic and believable situations with no special effects. Even the biggest comedy ever, The In-Betweeners, biggest comedy, not British comedy, biggest comedy ever, £40 million at the box office last year. Right, starts off down here as four teenage lads that are complete losers, and goes up there, probably up here. Okay? Very instructive chart as to how you can break the system. You don't need big budgets necessarily, but if you understand the audiences and what they're looking for, you have a chance. So that's your first tool, actually. That. Where is your film? If it's going to be uncompromising and gritty, okay, then try and make sure it's as knowing and clever as possible. If it's going to be as schmaltzy and moralistic, then try and keep it up in the uplifting and glamorous or something like that. There's nothing wrong with it, etc. If you're down here, you're probably in the world of festival films. No one's going to see it. It's a career. It's fine. You're okay. But, understand why this is happening and be clear about what your audience is when you're trying to make that movie. As someone said to me, Asif Kapadia, actually, those who know the filmmaker, I distributed his first film, and he did his second one many years later, which is Senna, the documentary. And he said to me, and it was a very good point, he said, but there's nothing wrong with making a film down here as your calling card, because actually that's what funders tend to fund. I'm absolutely right, as long as you know. I don't care what you do, as long as you know. People are not going to see it, but there's nothing wrong with it as a starting point at all. That's your first tool. Okay? Any questions?
How do you cross this line? How do you become cinematic? I'm thinking about
Yeah.
the Slumdog Millionaires.
Yeah.
I think they have the main characters are very special and very strong.
Yeah.
And, I think this is an important feature
Yes.
of their success.
Yes.
Great characters.
I completely agree. You've got to have a great director, great character, choreographer, cinematographer. The whole package has got to go into here to try and get it out from a grim and depressing to real stuff. And it could be tight, and it's not easy. It's not going to work every time. There's an interesting film coming out in the UK actually called Pride, Pride. I've not seen it. It's absolutely down. Excuse me. It's absolutely down here. What it is, it's the miners' strike again. It's gay. It's 1984 again, and it's lesbian and gay support groups in London go and help the miners in South Wales. Okay, with prejudice and so on, because in those days miners really didn't like gay people, and that's the film. It's called Pride. Now that story is kind of down here, but they've gone huge. I haven't seen it. It's like they're feeling it's like a Billy Elliot and so on. It'd be very interesting to see how that pans out. But that's got to be in the execution. Tricky and it's risky and it's gambly, but you've got the right people. But that's the only thing I can say on that. Any other questions on that? Have you got your own film pointed on there already? Don't cheat. Okay. The second tool is this, and I'll just run through this, and then I want to take one or two of your films, actually. Just to explain this is another way of viewing the same thing. These 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 success factors. There are 6. The more that you tick in each box, the better your chance of success is. The less you have in each box, the more of a gamble it is, in terms of investment, in terms of print and advertising expenditure, and so on. Okay, this basically shows you how people make decisions in the film business. They don't use this, but they use versions of it. Okay? So, clear genre. Does this project have a clear genre or not? The clearer the genre, the better it is. Because of the reasons I said earlier. Who's in it? Now, who's in it is for a number of reasons. One, will I get a performance out of them? I need to get some reasonable form of acting. But two, will they get coverage? Will they do PR? And only three, will audiences recognise them and buy a ticket because of it? There's a bit more on DVD or home entertainment, that is. But those are where that is. And same with director and producers. Okay, got that? Known source, we talked about. Is it, the classic known source is a sequel. That's why there's so many sequels. The first one's a big hit, might as well do number 2. It's a known source. Blimey, everyone knows about it. Hangover 2, yep, know that one, thank you. Right? So or it's a book. How many people know the book and so on, okay? Or it's a myth, Marvel, and so on. Potential or buzz, this is a really tricky one. This is what most filmmakers come down to. What this basically says is how good is it? And potential and buzz can be in critical attention, awards, reviews, or perhaps most importantly, word of mouth. Someone talked about that in one of the sessions, asking about promotion and people talking about it. Is word of mouth. Are people talking about this film positively? Or, if you haven't made the film, how can I trust these people to make a film that's good enough to get potential and buzz in the audience that I think that we're dealing with? What's the story? 1 sentence. That's all you got. Only got a few seconds. What's it about? 1 sentence. And is it new and different? And it usually is not. There are very few films that are actually new and different. So let's take a film that exists. Do you know this film? Looking for Eric, by the way? The Ken Loach film? Okay, so don't worry about it. Can we take a film, just take a film that's out there somewhere that we all know, and we'll just pass that through, and then if anyone's brave enough, I'll do your own project. So just take a film, any film. You're going to become financiers. Just take a film, or distributors. Name a film. Pardon? Angel's Share. I don't know it. Anyone know it? I'm happy to do it, but I just don't know the film. What? It's a good story about Titanic. Titanic's cheating. It's the biggest film of all time. Whatever. Give us another one. Good one, though. Give us another one. Come on. What? Fight Club's an interesting one. Okay, Fight Club. Fight Club? Okay, right. What's the genre? What is it? Is it? Do you think it's a drama? Action? I'm ashamed to say I've never seen it. Action, drama? Is it thriller? Is it a thriller? Drama, thriller? Psychological, what? Okay. What, out of 5, if you're going to give it out of 5, how many would you give it? As a thriller, let's say. Who's seen it? Right, so how many would you give it out of 5? It's a thriller. 3, 2, 3, 5? 3. Okay. So we'll give it 3 out of 5. So not bad, but not a slam dunk. It's not a complete, it's not like a straight up and down thriller. Right. Who's in it? Yeah. Go on. Who directed it? Yeah. Go on. Who else is in it? What? Yeah. So it's directed and cast up, isn't it? At that point, how old was this film? 10, 12 years? 15, 14? 99. 15 years old. I don't know how big Brad Pitt was, actually. Edward Norton was probably as big, wasn't he? In other words, they're not huge. I mean, we're looking at it from 15 years later. Had Fincher done 7? He'd done 7 by then. Okay, fine. So Fincher's probably the big one there. All right, if we're looking at it in terms of this. So, okay, so out of 5, how many are we going to give it? 5. Okay, let's give it 5. Known source? No, it's not. It's naught, isn't it? Potential buzz, come back to that. What's it about? Help me, because I never thought of what it's about, but oddly I've not seen it. You're trying to persuade me to go to the cinema to see it. What's it about? It's got Brad Pitt in it, it's David Fincher, he did Seven. Oh yeah, okay, fine, I'm halfway there. Okay, I'm halfway there, but I want to know what it's about. A fight club. Okay, it's got fighting in it. I can get that from the title. That's not quite enough for me. It's got fighting in it. It might be enough for some. Certainly not enough for my wife. She'd go absolutely nowhere. The Fight Club's a terrible title for a woman, even though it's got Brad Pitt in it.
It's not like it's about a life, but after that, it's more about searching for yourself.
As though you're searching through yourself through fighting. Yeah? Good, sort of good enough to me. It's very male, isn't it? It's incredibly male. As well? It has got a twist, which of course you can't really say, can you? Now, it's more about the marketing position of it. But let's leave it at that for the time being. So you find yourself through the Fight Club. Is it new and different? It was a bit, wasn't it? I don't know why. Why was it new and different? Because of the twist? Visual. Okay, so we'll go at 3 or 4, 3 then. So, and then potentially the film's not made. Okay? So what have I got as I begin to look at this as a package? Okay? I've got, you see, how much is the movie? Probably $20, $25 million at that point. Okay, probably. Well, they're not going to come cheap. Okay, like that. I'm a head of production somewhere. I'm looking at my numbers. I look at this, etc. They've come through the door. I've read the script. Okay, I've got 3 out of 5 for genre. I've got a fairly well cast, but not, I've got Tom Cruise. Probably couldn't afford him. It's got no known source. I'll come back to that. It's got a pretty decent hook, but it's skewing very male. All right? This is not a date movie. It's not that. This is a problem for me. It's a fight club movie. That's a big problem. Well, I'm looking at my demographics, but it is a bit new and different because the script's great. Okay? So this becomes quite important. And the director becomes really important. And the writer becomes really important. And the actors become, and the whole team become important because it better bloody work with audiences and critics. Because this is a bit of a tricky movie, even with that and that. Okay? Well, of course it was. That's why we named it, so we can remember it. Okay? Many movies are there. So this is in effect what, that was a bit more of a gamble. Most independent films will have no, or terrible twist, and they'll go, well, I'll make a great movie. Don't worry about it. We'll go for awards. It'll go to Cannes. Which is very risky indeed. Indeed. Does anyone want to do their own film? If you've got a project. This, by the way, this part of doing this exercise, what the story is about, as the Institute of Transmedia said, I forgot the name, Sarah, yeah, said, 1 sentence for your film. This is the bit that is really tough. This is the area that will find you out in terms of scripts, it will find you out in terms of storytelling, it will find you out in terms of focus. Because if you can't do this, or you have a problem with it, then you've got a problem with your script. You've got a problem with your story. It's splitting. There's something not right in it. You can spend a month getting this right. I'm not exaggerating either. Okay? Or trying to distill it and distill it and distill it. But that's what happens to your film. It will get distilled. And you want it distilled in the way that you want people to distill it in the way that you are distilling it. Yeah? So, does anyone want to do one? It's good therapy. It's free as well. Normally I charge. No? Anyone want to do it? You don't have to. Your chances go. Come on. I've never had a no from the audience. Hard though it is. Are you all developing projects on your own? Do you collaborate at all? You're all from Slovenia, yeah? Do you meet and talk about your projects? Hands out who meets and talks about their projects. Each other. Anyone. Any filmmakers. You're independent filmmakers, you've got no resources. Do you share? Talk about the projects? But not professional. You don't share. You don't have clubs where you fight. You don't have talk clubs, film clubs where you meet and discuss how you're doing stuff. You have no resources, or very little. Your ability to communicate and talk to an audience is quite small. You've got a Facebook page, you can set it up and so on. But what I'm seeing here, I took out a slide about mutuality. I thought I'm not going to give you this one. From other areas of creativity, and you saw some of it before this morning, people collaborate, and they collaborate radically. They collaborate radically in terms of product development, and they collaborate radically with each other. In many, many areas of stuff now, where you open yourself up. But here, and in many cases in independent film, there's still a silo kind of mentality, which is somehow I develop everything in the dark, and I don't share. And this is an example. I'm not telling you off, I'm just saying it's an observation. This could have been, or could be, a melting pot of excitement about how I can develop my idea, share it, push it on. Okay? But for some reason, for whatever it is in the context that you are working in, that's very difficult for you to do. I would urge you to try and break that because of what I'm about to say in the last section of this. Okay? Mutuality. You need it. I'm going to ignore that. Last section. Who are all these people? Pardon? Yes. They're all production. They all started what? Yeah, they all started the studios, the production studios. Correct. Fox, Universal, MGM, Paramount, Warner's are still sort of going. But they did something else. They all sold tickets. All of them ran Nickelodeon cinemas in 1905. All of them. And the reason why they turned to production is because the European filmmakers, most notably Pathé, were not making the right films for their audiences. Actually, Pathé were turned a bit arty. French. And so on. But so they did that, and of course the First World War that blew out the supply chain for the silent movies and the reels. Was another reason. And a lot of those people, of course, were European. There's no magic about them being American. They came from emigres from Europe. But what they did do was they eyeballed their audiences. They knew what made them laugh and they knew what made them cry. Now, in our own country, we have David Putnam, Lord Putnam, one of our most successful producers, creative producers ever, Trout and Fire, Oscar winner, etc., etc. He begs and pleads everyone to go into a cinema, do a couple of weeks internship there and sell tickets, or be an usher in those cinemas, and just see what makes people laugh and cry. Because that is the way of trying to intuitively understand what it is that audiences are looking for. Okay? This is the bad news. When I started work, I was a projectionist, 35mm projectionist, in 1978, in the Gates Cinema in London. It's quite nice, isn't it? And when I started working there, we changed the film about every 3 months. Okay? We had about 3 films a year in that single screen cinema. It was an art house cinema. Played Vendors, Fassbender, Bertolucci, all the kind of 70s, 80s, British, Derek Jarman, and so on. okay? Hungarian films, Polish films, Krzysztof Zanussi, Istvan Szabo, so on, okay? It was the cutting edge of movies, cinema going in the UK. Changed film every 3-4 months. I know that because I was the bloody projectionist. It drove me mad. We also played late nights, 7 nights a week, but that's different. Our main feature. Furthermore, the film only played in that cinema in London. So the only place you could see this film was in the Gate Cinema. Right? And it wasn't alone either. If a film played like some of the Merchant Ivory films, the Remains of the Day and those kind of stuff, and Morris and I don't know what else that Merchant Ivory did, they played in one cinema in London called the Curzon Mayfair Cinema, which also only played it for about 4 or 5 months. But the Curzon Cinema had a policy. If you owned that film, you were the distributor of that film, you couldn't play that film within a radius of about 80 miles. So you couldn't play in Brighton, which was 80 miles away, it was too close to the Curzon Mayfair. Couldn't play in Oxford. For 4 months. Right? And even when you move to more mainstream cinema, like, for example, Chariots of Fire, which actually opened in the Odeon Haymarket, in the Odeon chain, and it played there exclusively for about 2 months, before going out to the rest of the UK, from memory anyway. And this, of course, was terrible. What a terrible thing to do. Because there's no access. We heard about access this morning. Terrible. Terrible thing for a customer. I believe this. I was brought up in the world of scarcity. Okay? I was brought up in the world where it was really difficult to see a movie, but when it changed, it got quite exciting. And there weren't many of them, because there weren't many cinemas to put them in. All right? So I was brought up in the world of scarcity. And this continued, by the way. If this film would go into travel around, it would take 2 years to go around the country, any particular film, and then it might appear on television. There are only 3 channels, don't forget how old I am, there were only 3 channels in 1978. ITV, BBC One and BBC Two. Right? Not the hundreds you get now, there were 3. So, and if it turned up on BBC Two, ITV didn't buy this, in BBC Two, you go, oh, blimey. Now this stayed the same until about 1980, 81, 1982 when VHS came in. And gradually you began to get the whole home entertainment. And gradually you move it on. And then you go on to DVD. And then you go on to the internet in the mid-2000s. And I've now believed up to 2005, 6, 7, this was brilliant because everything's available. Everything's available. More and more and more films are available. This is fantastic. Okay, until very recently, we began to realise that actually this is a real curse. Because actually there's just too many of these films. And the value of them is going down and down and down because you have a lot of stuff, you don't value it as much. So the first thing about this, the first thing about how to approach getting your film to an audience can I make it exclusive? Now this is new for me, I've only just started talking about this. I don't think, that's why I took offence a bit to that thing about the audience development thing being about access. We have access. We've got access fucking everywhere. We've got thousands and thousands and thousands of films online immediately. I don't need any more access. I think we now need the other way around. I think we need to be more exclusive. I think you need to think about that. Is my film exclusive? How can it be exclusive? Or is it just accessible everywhere? Is it playing the same games it plays with everyone else? There's 2 things about exclusivity. Of course, it's expensive. You can create value. This is the front page of an arbitrarily chosen Facebook VOD platform. Front page. Not second page, third page. You're not buried down in the others, right? This is where your film will end up. Now, we've already seen how maybe we can find out what films I might want to see or not see, but basically, I don't know these movies. Do I like ballroom dancing? Might want to, Renal Barbarian, what the hell's that? Ronald the Barbarian. I mean, I don't like barbarian films very much, actually, thank you. And my dad and so on, okay, Marley, okay, and so on. I'm completely lost. I'm looking at that like this. What the hell's all these films about? So what do? I switch off. Move on to some other form of entertainment. There are just too many of the bloody films at the moment. This is the New York Times review in December the 31st. The New York Times reviewed 900 films. It's nearly 20 a week. That's reviewed. That means they're in the cinema of some description. 20 a week. How the hell do people decide which film they're going to see? Your film is amongst that. That is the environment you are now coming in. There's less money and more films. Brilliant. How do we manage to make that happen? Loads of bloody talent development initiatives, that's what. Loads of people thinking they can have a career in the film business when this is happening. It's a nightmare for people with content. Great if you're a platform, terrible if you're a content. This number, which grows every year, this is the review going on, tiny fraction for 12 months, etc. That's not, and of course we know that. There are thousands and thousands of films, 6,000 films a year being made, 1,500 in Europe alone a year, and going up because of public subsidy, and going up. Right? And this is the next point. There seems to be a growing disjunction, a chasm really, between the quality of the work being made, i.e. it's good, and the intensity of its reception, i.e. we're taking no interest. Well, why would you? There's too many of them. There's 20 films a week. It'll be more this year. There are 300 films in Toronto at the moment. Screen International today did an editorial, you can have a look at it, which says there are too many films. I can't see them all. There's just too many films. Why have we got all these films? It doesn't quite say that, but it's saying that. That's selected films. Selected. It says the film business not consumers, the film business can't concentrate on it. That's in Toronto. Oh, great, my film's in Toronto. You're one of 300. Toronto's one of the major film festivals, and you will be lost. What the bloody hell is that about? How are you going to get attention? How is your film going to make it? How are you going to rise above this stuff? That's why I'm banging on about audiences so much. There are too many films being made, but the good news is they don't think about audiences, 99% of them. You have that chance to do that. You have the chance of making something different. That's A.O. Scott talking about it. Conversely, we have television, booming away, right? All these brilliant series. Now, you could argue it's creativity, but it suddenly struck me, I thought, I wonder how many there are. Well, I added them up. Last year, there were 27 new, I think, from memory, 27 new series started in the networks, all the networks in America. There's still quite a lot. We did 900. Right? No wonder you can begin to concentrate on it and talk about it in the water cooler stuff. And sort of going like, well, have you seen True Detective? No, etc. But movies? Where are movies in this? They're just going down, They're not that. There's too many of them. They're not that interesting anymore. It's a real problem. Your task is to make movies interesting to consumers again by being inventive and rising above it. It's not easy, but if you don't, you're buried. And you'll end up, at best, being a festival film. That's unfortunately the truth. For those filmmakers who've already gone through it once, you probably will have found that out. So the first thing is about exclusivity. I'm coming to the end. The second point to concentrate on, is that too depressing? Probably was. The second point to concentrate on, which people don't, is experience. Okay? Most people think experience is left to the retailers. My challenge is actually to say that experience is actually part of the creative process. What are you making that enhances the experience of the viewer? I've already identified the emotional stuff I want them to feel. I've got my holes sorted out from my drill. I've understood it's cinematic. I've got a great cinematographer, etc. But what else am I doing to enhance that experience? That's the thing you've got to think about. Because of this reason. Because people are no longer buying stuff as much as they used to, especially in the developed economies. Oh, yeah. You might have seen that, so I'm cheating. What age range are people most likely to attend the theatre? What do you think? Pardon? Yeah, how old are roughly the people most likely to go and see a theatre? Sorry? 60. 40. Yeah, it's not true. In the UK, it's 16 to 19. Are the people most likely or wanting to go to the theatre, to have the theatre experience? And the argument is this is what we're happening, even with the recession. This is Maslow's hierarchy of needs, for those who know this, is that you've got various things. These are your physiological, your basic ones. And when you move up, you've got all these things where you've got chances. So in other words, the more wealthy you get, the less you have to worry about the basic bits, security, breathing, food, and so on. You can move into here. What's happening is that people are turning away from possessions. You can see this in America. For those who see this, there's a whole kind of movement, a digital movement. We just get rid of everything. We just have this, it's a bit wanky, but I mean, you know, but people, there's whole movements about this and commentaries about it. There's a movement called stuffication, we're suffocated with stuff. Okay? So what that means is that there are various things where we used to own stuff that we tend not to own it anymore. Cars. Do you have car sharing in Slovenia? Yeah? You have car clubs? You will. Okay? Spare rooms. Airbnb? Okay. The whole thing about I start to share stuff. So sharing stuff, I don't own it. I don't own a car in London, don't have to. I'm part of a car club. It's parked around the corner. I want to use it. It's £10 an hour. I just go and get the car. I don't care about owning a car. Books, I don't own books. I've almost stopped buying books, etc. I certainly don't own films. I stream them, and so on and so on. So there's a whole kind of thing whereby we're no longer actually buying stuff. We're owning stuff. We're tending to rent it, or stream it, or have a different business model. So what that means is that what am I really buying? When I go out, I'm not out to buy something. I'm going out to buy the experience. And this explains the rise of immersive theatre, which is the people like Punch Drunk and other theatre companies across Europe, especially in Eastern Europe actually. A theatre that's broken out from the fourth wall, the wall that's in front of them and the audience is now moving out. The rise of immersive theatre, of experience, is hugely important, and people pay a lot of money for this. And of course, for those who know secret cinema in the UK, where you dress up and go to the cinema, you don't know this? Oh wow, it's fucking huge. It's huge. There it is. That's how many people turning up. That's one show. That is Back to the Future. They've all dressed up. This is like the last 2 weeks. He's taken £4 million. £4 million in his show. Box office. By showing Back to the Future as a theatrical experience. He's built his brand up over the years. Secret Cinema, check it out. Okay? Looks rather great, doesn't it? I mean, these are big productions now. But these are experiences, these selling experiences. Where does your film fit into the experience economy? How is it competing or part of this? How close is it? Or is it just a film that unveils in a cinema somewhere where you've moved on to the next one and you just hope that it's okay, which is fine. But again, you're going to have less likely for people to be able to see it. All right? Okay? So you've got exclusivity and you've got experience. Experience. And the third point is much simpler, which is event. And they all three intermingle. The more exclusive and the bigger the experience, the more the event. Secret Cinema is a massive event. People fly in from all around Europe now for that event. It's an event. If it's not an event, cinema going is an event. Remember I put that up earlier? It's still seen as an event, which is a good thing. It means that people value the experience. They think it's an event already. You don't have to tell them. But even so, what are you doing to help make it an event? The classic event of the film is the premiere, exactly. Okay? Standard. Okay? What else? Q&As are events, and they work. You know, turning up and saying stuff actually works. People like it. It's an event. But what else might become an event, an experience? They tend to go together. The challenge really is how much of that is inside your original creative concept. And I would beg and urge you to think about those three things, not just after you've created your stuff or made the film and figured out how you're going to get people in to see it, but right at the beginning of when you're actually thinking about it. Thank you very much.